Alright, so I finally got this fucking camera going. But not going, I'm telling you, it did not want to work. So I'll put this here if we can. Alright, that's fair. Alright, now I'm gonna get my gloves back. I don't want to fuck around. And I think I've got myself fairly warm. This one thing is I don't want to fuck around with what I got going on here. So I've got some warm hands. Oh, good. I stop here for a bit and eat. I did not want to start. It's very bright. I turned up the brightness today because I knew it would be glare, but I guess I didn't do it enough. Once I leave here, because this is full of snow, so it's like people in the movie industry would know like how much light kind of is getting reflected here in this Environmento. And that's my next film, Environmento. It's if you're tired of the taste that leaves in your mouth. Newsflash, this just in. Science tells us that the fucking climate is always fucking changing. And that humans adapted to the fact and the prospect food, or warmth, or cold, or heat, or this or that disappearing as the heavens move around the earth. That's why we have things like the Farmer's Almanac, freezers, refrigerators, and wool socks. That's right. Understand, the climate is always changing. And that's a big because you could be really happy in one climate and another climate is coming along, you know, presenting entirely different dangers. If you go walking during the day in a desert, you're like, hey, it's pretty good. And you get lost in the middle of the night, it's like minus degrees or something. And you die because you can't even have fire. You don't even have a candle and a blanket that you could basically live under. You're dying of climate change, right? You don't have to wait for the poles to melt. I'm just saying, right? You know, I'm erring on the side of being pro-human safety. Because, you know, people who know me know I'm one safe motherfucker. If you got any safe, you'd be too safe. I'm too safe. Thinking today about how, you know, middle-class people who make, upper middle class, who make great real estate agents and online gurus because they never really have to deal with anything and they're incredibly good liars. This one girl, Michaela Chung, who calls herself the mix of a white person and a Chinese man. The person is, but she calls herself an introvert, which I don't use that terminology. I think natural people like children are naturally fucking afraid of women just like her. And maybe just about everybody else who believes this person, who calls herself an introvert and a life coach, but is also a stand-up comedian and clearly loves to dance in public, like to exhibit herself, and even has a video suggesting that she's going to get naked for you and then says, I mean, that does not sound like an introvert to me. I'm not an introvert, I'm not an extrovert. But I'll tell you this, if she's a life coach, she's going to get most of her clients people who think they're introverts, and she's not going to get people who think they're extroverts. Right? They mean different things, really, if you talk about like what people themselves. I would never call myself an introvert or an extrovert. I'm neither. It's an ambiguous terminology. There's no real scientific definition. and these people are practicing kind of like pseudo-social psychology, astrology. The same thing in the medical establishment. Afraid of people in certain situations? Well, that's just because sacred story over here and fucking bullshit story over here. Oh, okay. You just get drained by being around other people. That's just something, 15 to 25% of the population just feel like the life is being sucked out of them when they're around people like you. This woman calls herself an introvert and can get in front on a stage and tell jokes, even maligning the race of other people, albeit herself at the same time. She's not afraid that someone's going to yell at her. Do you have any idea how much courage it takes to get on a stage, much less to be a comedian? Now, at one point in watching her videos for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, she managed to also tell me that her family was rich and that she spent $50,000, or they did, on becoming a dental hygienist. And all they learned was how to brush their teeth. Joke, right? Who the fuck has $50,000 to throw away? What does this woman do? But she's telling you, quite naturally, I come from a wealthy family. She has the body of a 14-year-old, and I think she might be 25 to 35 years old. Something doesn't add up. You're calling yourself an introvert, and you're going on stage. I think we have to think about what it means. Right? If you're going to get me on stage, I'm going to jokes. And if I do, they're going to be jokes of such biting satire that while you're laughing, your brain is going to go into shock. What the fuck would you do with the time of human beings when you know how much people suffer? And you're taking this thing, like being able to pretend to be someone, which upper middle class white women do, and scarcely know the difference from anything else. Whereas other people, say for families like myself, my siblings went on to pretend to be people, but I didn't. I couldn't. This lady, Michaela Chun, practically brands her name. Which means she's really being Michaela Chun, if such a possibility exists, right? Boy, you're really being Michaela Chung. You really are Michaela Chung, aren't you? You're a Chung type of person. Boy, that Michaela Chung isn't. And there's a poet in the United States who has a very similar physical profile as well, called Sarah Kay, I think her name is, and she's a spoken word poet. And it's just like, there's something weird about them. It's like, again, they come off like they would call themselves an introvert, but they seem extremely extroverted. You see them on stage in front of people, like exhibiting themselves like little priestesses. And what you're really seeing is a well-trained upper middle class female. Any one of whom can get on stage and tell you about the new vaccine for your babies, no matter how many it killed. Because these are company people. They're always going to take the line of the company. They need to be able to be different professions. They need to be able to follow a company line. From the upper middle class, you get the doctors, you get the engineers, government officials, you get curators of famous theaters, things like that. Right? People. They become the head of the library. They're company people. They're followers, they're rule keepers, right? They are basically human robots for the algorithm of order in society. And if you really step back, if you go to a party, and I don't, but if you go around people, you'll see that everybody's body language is programmed. And I grew up like gobsmacked at people like I went to high school with, and the kinds of people that would group together that all seemed to be able to speak the same language, and I didn't know what it was. Didn't matter whether they were rich or poor, whether they were cool or uncool. And there's this guy, Mike Olson, and he walked around literally like he had a stick up his ass. Like there was something up his ass. Like the next thing he was about to do was look back and go, what the fuck was up my ass? And that's how he walked around. And you don't have to be an expert in body language to think, holy fuck, right? The way he walked around. Or you watch some young men who bounce when they walk. I'm not trying to say it means one thing in particular, but I often feel when I meet predatory females for the first time, or creepy females, that I feel like a little light on my feet. Like I want to run away. I want to run away so much that I sort of feel like I'm kind of move out of my body a little. And I've actually had predatory females say, oh yeah, you look like you're a little light on your feet. You know, there's nothing that makes your balls want to crawl back up into your insides than, to me, the average white female. And what I didn't get to earlier and what I would say is that if I could speak purely from my primal feelings as a young boy, I have always been a mother, and I've always been afraid of women my entire life, and I've never found anything but reason to be. I have never had a date. I would never marry anyone. I've never had sex. I have been raped and sexually assaulted multiple times. I have never had consensual sex with a female, ever. Right? Never, that where it wasn't violently inappropriate from her end. Even though that technically that's not possible in the modern world. That's not supposed to be able to happen. Right? I'm gonna have some food now. I have to take this opportunity. Oops, let's put this on. My hands aren't too cold yet. Get some more. This will be one of the last times I eat, till at least this food anyway. Very sensible of how cold it is out here. That's why I didn't think my camera was working. It was so cold. Now, I could explore this fear, while at the same time, I can physically respond or get an erection based on what women feel about me in their pubic hair, from whence they give off a lot of estrogen and pheromones. Since I was young. In fact, there was this one girl who started stalking me in grade all the way to grade 7. 4 years she stalked me. I didn't know what it was called. She would call my house under an assumed name. And pretending she was an Indian. So she was also a young racist. Right? Kind of a disgusting person. And this is attractive, Michelle. I used to call her Tish. And Tish was the first kind of weird word I used for a human vagina. For some strange reason, if I had had an art therapist, I would have called her a walking vagina. You're opened up in school and high school to basically a giant vagina, producing all kinds of forces, emotions, pheromones, and estrogen. Right? Most schools are female dominant. In the white world, there's more women than men. And especially if you're not on the football team and you're not coagulating with the males, it's sort of saying that you're being estrogen poisoned. You're getting erections all the time. I'm getting acne. I have primal fear. And I've never been comfortable at school. In the first few years, it was all female teachers. And the animal of my mind and body found a way to show them that I was actually terrified of being there. And they just smiled and forced me to be there. They ignored my body language. Were they right? Were they right to keep me there? Straight A's, you know. They liked me. What are these little fears? He's just shy. I fled school when I was in grade 2. I went home. I was a block away. My mom forced me to go back. When I was put in preschool, right? I know exactly what kind of women these were. I meet them all the time. They terrified me. I pissed myself, and they put me in a dark room in the back and let me stay there in my wet, pissed out pants the entire time, terrified. I did not want to be there. I'm sure they knew that. And when my mom came, they didn't breathe a word of it. I was 3 years old. It's one of my first recollections of women outside my family. Okay? They probably had their degree in childhood education or gender studies. I was basically like a puppy. They didn't attempt to talk to me. It's not hard to see why I might have been scared if you put two and two together. I wasn't scared of what these women would do to me. I was scared of who they were. I was scared before there was feminism or God or anything in my life, before Santa Claus. I was scared of who they were. I was scared of what signs of humanity they didn't give me evidence of. They never gave me the body language as a young animal that they weren't capable of harming me or neglecting me. Indeed, it bore out the truth. Okay? And you go on, I went to a new country, I went to a new school, it was the same thing with the first two females I found there. Right? The first female face I ever saw at 5 years of age, or near to 5 years of age, when I came into Godson Elementary, was the beautiful, full frontal, full eye contact, smiley face of a woman who worked as a secretary, who was actually using her vagina to destroy the life and the lives of one of my closest friends and his brother and sister. He was ruining their family with the needs of her pussy. I was too young to understand that, how hungry a woman's pussy could be, and how she had no compunction about smiling at me and teaching me that she was a safe person. She was an adult. And to this day, whenever I see women working in clerical jobs for the city or local civic center, the pool, the dentist, I always try to reserve my gag reflex. Not because I want to insult them, but because I know from experience, a girl that sexually assaulted me and stalked me in high school was a secretary at a dental office for many years. He eventually married a used car salesman. Maybe it's giving you a sense of the low kind of development of white people, not just women, or in this case also, in any case I guess of mine, just the kinds of people I was around. You know, I loved this girl. I thought she was cute. I didn't know what sexual fucking even was, but I was clearly primed for it. You know, women love to stalk me. I mean, fuck. I mean, it's like, wow. They stalk me, and there are many women I know are scapegoating people. There are men who are scapegoating energies, which means combined with your energy, you're more likely to be hurt by something or someone if you know this person. So, and I've known people like they like you or something, things about you, but they, you know, hello. You see that little bird fly by? Nice. You know, people who knew me since I was a child, or say they did, who didn't even know what country I came from. This one gay guy I knew from when we were very young, but he seemed to know me. He would always say, even into our 40s, oh yeah, Landon, I saw you when we were in swimming lessons when I was about 6 or 7 years old at the local outdoor pool. But I never saw him. We never had any considerable interaction, and just started stalking me. And he never cared about any other experience we seemed to have together. Ever made me someone worthy of him treating as anything more than a disposable douche. Granted, he had his issues. It's like you learn after a while that this is about as good as it gets. This person is never going to be any more of a friend now or ever than they are now. On top of which, they are aggressive to you and they're abusive to you. And you ask yourself every time you're around this person, why do I know them? Narcissism isn't like an intent to harm people. These are nice people, just like me. But you don't protect people enough from harm. Fuck. We'll leave that. We're gonna get going now. That's enough time. That's good though. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's put this here. I'm gonna put some toast in my pocket here. I got some toast in my pocket. Okay. We'll put it in here. Okay. And then okay. And we'll just get the cylinder out here and put this joint away. I'm having problems with some of this weed. I'm not getting always the full smoke that I want out of it, but I get like 2 smoke sessions out of it. I should like to get more, but it doesn't always go that way. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off again and let myself warm up.